The MS-90LP MultiStomp Advanced Looper Pedal by Zoom features a high-quality 32-bit float processor, up to 90 minutes of stereo recording for each of the 100 loop locations with a total of 13-hour record time. The main foot switch is surrounded by 4 function buttons including dedicated stop, undo, rhythm, and a 4th for user-assignable loop effects. Between the foot switches and LCD screen are 4 push-button multifunction knobs, giving you access to and complete control over everything the pedal can do. Additional features include 68 built-in rhythm patterns, tempo synchronization via TRS MIDI or USB MIDI, USB Type-C port for import and export of loops. It also has full stereo in and out and a rugged metal chassis, and can run on either USB power, a 9-volt adapter, or 2 AA batteries. When preparing to record or use a loop, the main screen gives you 4 options. Time, either free, which loop records until you press stop, or a length based on a given number of eighth or quarter notes you have chosen. Start is for playback and gives you 2 options. Quick begins the loop at full volume, while fade will gradually fade in the pre-recorded loop over a couple of seconds. Stop is also for playback, but gives you a 3rd option to end the loop once it has completely played all the way through. And loop volume is pretty self-explanatory. Each of these 4 settings are directly tied to the current loop you are working with. For easy indication of pedal status, Zoom backlights their LCD screen in one of 5 different colors. These indicate waiting, playback, recording an overdub, final loop playthrough, and when a loop effect is on. Let's go back and take a closer look at the foot switches. While the center button is pretty straightforward for starting, recording, or overdubbing, the other 4 foot switches get a little more in-depth. Stop will end the loop as that memory location is set, or you can also stop playback immediately by pressing the stop button twice. A long hold will clear the memory completely, but a firmware update just before this video went live now gives you 2 more options. Revert undoes any recording after being stopped and restores the loop to the previous state it was saved, which is great if you want to have a copy of the loop without the last overdub that was recorded to it. And Off prevents accidental clearing of the phrase memory. There is no longer concern of dwelling too long on the stop button and losing all the work you just did. As expected, the undo switch also allows you to redo the last layer so you can see how well you like what you've committed to the current loop phrase you are working on. The rhythm button starts and stops the drum beat, metronome, or click track. You will also begin to see the small red LED pulse in accordance with the current tempo setting. Additionally, this will open the rhythm menu screen, allowing you to choose pattern, beats per minute, and the volume you want the rhythm to be at for the phrase memory location you are currently working in. Let's take a moment and listen to some of the rhythms. And the fourth button controls the loop effects you have chosen, including momentary use when this button is held down. The MultiStomp looper puts a lot of control at the tips of your fingers. Moving phrases, customizing memory names, record modes, output routing, complete MIDI setup, and screen visibility are just a few of the 24 menu items at your command. The Zoom looper appears to have it all, until you get to the rhythm section. This is where the Zoom pales in comparison against the competition. The rhythm sync menu we saw earlier is only for telling the pedal when you want the rhythm to start or stop. There is no way to tempo match. When you do use the hold, double speed, half speed, reverse, or start, the drums act like that crazy battery bunny and just keep going, not even attempting to match your beat. And speaking of beats, while you can listen to different rhythms one after the other before recording, don't even think about trying to audition different rhythms while a phrase is playing back.
That isn't going to do you any good. Stop. You realize I can't allow this.
Let's get into what I consider are the benefits, the pitfalls, and opportunities Zoom has to make this pedal even better. Zoom is the first at this price point to have full 32-bit processing. While many loopers at this point also have 100 loop locations, Zoom ups the ante by giving you a maximum of 90 minutes for a single loop location recording and 13 hours stereo total record time for all of your loops. Zoom has leveraged their MultiStomp technology to present you with 5-foot switches that cut down on tap dancing and improve workflow. The waveform readout and backlit colors on the loop display make this easy to use in any situation. Deep customizable control over most aspects of this looper, including full MIDI implementation and 24 different menus to get you precisely where you need to be and with what you want to do. It is also one of the only loopers where everything can be done from moving to naming loops without having to use additional software. Zoom leverages their MultiStomp architecture to give you 3 different ways to power this device: USB-C, AA battery, or a traditional pedal power supply. And last but not least, Zoom has packed all of this power into a rugged tour-grade enclosure. This looper also has its share of potential red flags. The push-button knob system, while giving great flexibility, also lends to its share of frustrations. The small knobs can not only be hard to grip, but also easy to accidentally push down, getting you into or out of a menu that you're working with. And to that effect, some of the menus showing you what knobs to use and how to use them can also be a little more confusing, as they don't necessarily line up with the knob you are supposed to be using. And while it may be a small issue for some, this is the first of the new series of loopers that I have run into in a while that does not have a dedicated output for use with earphones. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail in the last two since I cover these pretty heavily before getting to this list, but I really would have liked to have seen the ability to strum detect rhythms recorded before a rhythm pattern is added. And on that note, the playback of the rhythm not being affected by the loop effects can make some fun effect experimentation become a train wreck in no time flat. Finally, here are some opportunities I would like to see Zoom take to make the MS-90LP Plus an even better device. Easier access to file transfer. Right now, that's buried within the menus, and there's no easy way to be able to put it into file transfer mode for either firmware updates or for communicating with your computer. I get that it's like this primarily because you can use the USB to power this device. If they made it so you could just hold down 2 buttons when powering up to access file transfer, or just to double tap something like the menu button when you're already powered up to get to the file transfer mode, it would make importing and exporting files an even better experience. While you can take the time and just copy the settings from loop location to loop location, as opposed to copying the entire loop itself, I would like to see a global memory setting that allows you to set how the pedal is going to react every time you get into a new loop location, and then be able to alter it for that individual loop from there, should you ever want to. While not as common, but definitely becoming more prevalent as new loopers appear, the ability to smart extend layer recording is a feature I'm sure many would love to see on the Zoom Looper. So far, the only companies that I've seen make a budget-friendly looper with this feature have been TC Electronics in their Ditto Plus and Vailton in the VLP 200 and 400 loopers. And the final thing I'd like to see addressed by a loop firmware update is the loop effect's rhythm play behavior. Even if they made it so that the drums went silent when engaging a half-time, double-time, or reverse effect, that would be so much better than having the drums go off the rails on a crazy train. Putting aside minor inconveniences with the rhythm section, the Zoom MS-90LP Plus brings a lot to the table, or in this case, the floor, with ease of use, control, design, and sound quality. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on this Zoom loop pedal? Let us know, along with any experience you might have with it in the comments below. Thank you for taking time to hit that like button, and thank you to all that subscribe to this channel.